Harmonic Paradise Studios announces LTHS Universal Operating System 2.0, providing immediate new paths to researchers worldwide, accelerating our discovery of safe, permanent, low-cost solutions to the novel coronavirus, and the detection of a new universal Big Bang event now in progress, bigger than the original Big Bang and equally important, occurring in the world of consciousness, the world of the mind, using the newly announced technology Lths Uos 2.0, announced today, representing a new order of magnitude increase in our understanding and synthesis of our universal consciousness computer and operating system, to be released globally as soon as possible on this site. I invite you to join me now for this important breaking news. Announcing the miraculous arrival to Earth of Paradise Story Starship, Paradise for All. Climb aboard! The Separation Story Starship you're on is sinking! Climb aboard! This is a transmission announcement coming in from Sagittarius A, our galactic supermassive black hole, now here on Earth, through the magical infinite powers of expanding consciousness, perfectly focused through me on these words of broadcast to all planet Earth, all physical universe, all cosmos, to upgrade now to LTHS 1.1 consciousness. This is not a drill. This is a transmission announcement coming in from Sagittarius A, our galactic supermassive black hole, now here on Earth, through the magical infinite powers of expanding consciousness, perfectly focused through me on these words of broadcast to all planet Earth, all physical universe, all cosmos, to upgrade now to LTHS 1.1 consciousness. This is not a drill. Learn how to connect your consciousness at www.harmonicparadisestudios.com. Thank you. This is not a drill. Hi everyone. Today, Harmonic Paradise Studios announces LTHS 2.0, providing immediate new paths to researchers worldwide, accelerating our discovery of safe, permanent, low-cost solutions to the novel coronavirus. And, best of all, we're announcing the detection of a new Big Bang event. Bigger, but not more important, equally important, but bigger than the original Big Bang event, occurring in the world of consciousness that we're discovering now in 2020. This is something that is occurring in the world of consciousness, which is the world of the mind, our minds. Without our minds, who are we, right? We're awakening to this fact globally, and everything is coming together, including the collapse related to all of the coronavirus and economic stuff and all the separation-based things that are going on all around us. Perfect timing, if you will, for the arrival of something new, something that is outside of our current story that really sucks for everyone. Now, using LTHS Uos 2.0 technology, we are able to now see a new order of magnitude of detail and understanding of our universe from LTHS Uos 1.1, which is a great improvement in our synthesis and understanding of our universal consciousness computer and operating system. And it will be released globally here at this site, free to all, as soon as possible. I mean, this is something that can really reduce suffering, and loss of life worldwide. So we're going to put all the urgency possible behind this. LTHS UOS 2.0 represents a new, higher, spiked corona architecture. Looks just like the virus, actually. And their associated geometries. There's a whole new math. There's a frequency-based math, whole new math. In the sense, it invokes infinity in just about everything, but it simplifies everything into simple arithmetic of integers with lots of flexibility in between each integer. It's a beautiful math, and it represents it represents an architecture and structure that resembles the atom. It resembles stars. It resembles the coronavirus, and it resembles cells. It resembles all DNA bodies, plants, animals, bacteria. So this covers a lot of ground. And not only does it resemble these things, it resembles them because we are observing that they share this universal operating system, this universal architecture. And this greatly expands our understanding, and it greatly expands our ability for our experts to explore and deliver and discover new and improved immediate possibilities in how to safely, permanently, and at a low cost solve this problem that we're having with the novel coronavirus, for instance, along with so much more. So if you like what you've heard today and you'd like more information, come visit us at www.harmonicparadisestudios.com. Thank you. Okay, well, let's begin with just where we are today. I think as we look at this slide, these images feel familiar to our everyday lives. They're quite universal, including all the increasing bad news that we're seeing. There's no one exempt from that. I don't think there's anyone worldwide that is happy with the news that's circulating. It just continues to erode. All right, now we take our first step with LTHS by framing our entire universe as we know it, including ourselves, framing that. We frame that within, today, it's a loose set of silos, you know, just like you see at a college campus, all the different departments, all the different areas of study, silos, separate, and all these things are defined, and then there's that other side that I'll call the great unknown. The great unknown. That's pretty much where we are today. So now what we'll do is we're going to layer. We're going to add a CPU and a software layer to our current understanding of ourselves, to all of that. So everything we know today, we've now framed that into a bubble, and now on top of that we've layered a CPU and a software layer to that, universally. And I think you can kind of already see the kind of flexibility that's going to give us, universal flexibility now. Now a thought or an atom or anything is basically becomes a universal pixel to us by doing that, and we can manipulate that universal pixel any which way we do it if we have a platform for it, which now is the next part of what we see in the layering of LTHS, is that what we consider our current universe, our physical states, if you will. Okay, we've added layers of those as well. Layered expressions of hydrogen, basically, is what we see. Layered expressions of vibration and energy. hydrogen becoming stars. We see stars creating elements, spewing them out into the cosmos, elements becoming molecules, forming themselves into planets, planets then with water and DNA forming themselves into life, eventually seeing some sort of a human animal, human consciousness, human self-consciousness, and then finally the consciousness of this presentation, which I call Paradise Story Consciousness, enabled by Lths Uos 1.1. And all of that sectioned out in polarity, okay, if you will, and in seasons, the 4 seasons that we're familiar with. We see these as universal templates applying across the board in universally, whether it's a hydrogen atom or whether it's a story, whether it's a cosmos, following the same universal architecture, if you will. And all of that summarized with the tuple formula you see at the bottom, which represents the software, the CPU, and its resulting state. Those 3 components that all relate to one another, different forms of one another: the software, the CPU, the consciousness or mind, if you will, reading that software, and its resulting state. With the polarities, including a null polarity of no change. So, and then an exponential multiplier is seen there of self-conscious and universal consciousness. How aware are we of ourselves? How aware are we of our universe around us to be able to create tools with that universe? So that takes us pretty much everything from nothing itself, just a story, just software, all the way up to man, caveman, if you will, man that discovers fire, man that discovers iron, steel, man that discovers the internet, smartphones, and today man that discovers LTHS, Universal Operating System 1.1. To that, we add a water methyl backbone that is observed common throughout all life on Earth and actually universally on any other environment with similar conditions, that moves all of this around just as cleanly as the best built computers and networks. At this point, I'd like to just share with you a little mock-up demonstration of it so you could kind of help bring it to life, if you will. Okay, so imagine each of these tracks is a different story, overlapping slightly with the stories around it in layers. And now, and the line as it's playing, that's the now. So let's give this a shot. That was Big Bang, and that's the first stars. This is basically that tuple executing through clocks its layered stories. Boom, first explosions of stars, elements, molecules, out into space. First star systems with planets and moons. The arrival of water. There's the arrival of DNA. Life. Man already showing up. Industrial revolution. Where we're at today. Global collapse. Now we take all that, and using Lths Uos 1.1, we're able to perceive these previously hidden abstract story layers and can then consciously move ourselves to that higher, better, more abundant, more harmonious and free story, that new world, if you will, but universally now, all dimensions, any layer, firmly knowing that we're aligning to a clearly focused highest story. It's like having a map for the first time of and to a newly discovered world versus not having known what was on the other side, tremendously changing everything for us. And so now consciously and intelligently moving ourselves from our current collapsing possibilities story to a new infinitely expanding possibilities story using this technology. Now let's apply it into a real life example. Okay, so here we see pretty much I'm laying out the structure of that formula, that tuple that I mentioned that represents story, mind, and state all at the same time. I forgot to mention that tuple serves many different functions. It can be used as a value to compare values. Each part of the tuple itself represents, if you will, the label and version of its software component. So all the programming required to produce each of those comes with that. And by simply applying the layers into this formula, we can quickly map out what without this would be very, very difficult, because the stories are all intermixed, they're all interrelated. So here what we see is, we basically see, you could consider each point here a full tuple, if you will, and then the upper boundaries and lower boundaries of what the common denominators are between each of the two tuples, with the multiplexing, if you will, the black box computing going on between the two. So you have things that are being perceived as input on one side, coming out as output on the other, and you have the overlapping spaces between them, and now you have what you have basically is a universal motor that can move a point through this motor regardless of what the layers are in between, as long as each layer in between hands off the relay of that information necessary to the next step. No one knowing what's needed on each, and forming a blanket, if you will, a layer or an orbital. I think that kind of comes to mind. Now let's populate that in there with our story, if you will. You can see a paradise story, you can see a hydrogen story, star story, all the way up to stories that will produce this very moment here of us sitting here listening to this very conversation, this very presentation. Now, by layering Lths Uos 1.1 architecture once more and unifying this collection, then unifying again the highest common, highest and lowest common denominators, expanding perfection can be achieved systematically through simple programming and maintenance and grooming through this process, pixelizing basically everything universally, and doing then what we do every day in our computing science world. And now we can apply our example to this formula. So let's take, for example, a human, if you will. It might typically weigh 100 kilograms, let's say, which would represent, let's say, 6 kilograms of hydrogen. Let's look at that 6 kilograms of hydrogen's potential energy, potential story energy, using Lths 1.1 UOS as we go through different scenarios. So first of all, you'd see, here's where we start off with hydrogen, just operating as hydrogen, 6 kilograms of hydrogen, doing nothing else but being hydrogen. Boom, produces one potential story energy and represented in this equation. But now let's take that same hydrogen, but that's 6 kilograms of hydrogen inside of a water molecule functioning as water, we can see that now that same hydrogen is operating at a higher state and delivering a higher possible story potential operating as water than just as hydrogen. Now we take that water, that same hydrogen, we put it inside of one of us, a human being. So that same water, with that same 6 kilograms of hydrogen, is operating within us as a smartphone separation story conscious human being. And you can see how dramatically it increases, or it expands, let's say, the story potential of that same hydrogen. But you can see also that it's plus and minus. And that's important because now when we layer that same human being and we upgrade to Lths Uos 1.1 human, not only do we expand it further, but we eliminate the negative on that by discovering harmony story and being able to stay on that side of the equation rather than it being invisible and constantly finding ourselves into trouble. Here you can see where E equal mc squared fits into this overall equation, this overall model. So, and you could also see exactly how big of an expansion this Lths Uos 1.1 represents to our current understanding of ourselves and universe. Now, taking all that, let's reframe everything we've just talked about. So here's where we started this presentation with today. We'll populate that out on a new layered stage, if you will, a stage that allows us to tell layered abstract stories nested within one another. And here's the story, the separation story, this LTHS story that's playing out. And then here's our presentation of this all today. That what it's doing is it's transforming our universe as we know it through the power of expanding consciousness. It's a miracle. In other words, the computer was built, and now it's self-discovering itself, self-upgrading itself into what is occurring today. Thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed this.